Hey, good. Let's get right into this. So basically, people are very scared and excited about a lot of the fraud that's being found inside the Social Security Administration when it comes to its major programs like retirement, disability, etc., including the insurance programs known as, of course, Medicare, and I'm sure they're dabbling into Medicaid as well. Now, here's the main thing. A lot of people feel very strongly that Elon needs to provide them making statements right now, and the statements are quite outlandish. They are fraud is staggering, the magnitude is massive, stuff like that. So as a result of that, people are in a position now where they're looking at this situation, trying to figure out exactly where they are when it comes to believing whether or not Elon Musk, through the DOGE, if he's telling the truth or just fabricating things. Now, a lot of people, over 50% of America, want to see Donald Trump succeed. They want to see fraud gotten rid of. They want the lights to be shown in the dark corners of the Social Security Administration, along with other government agencies. Then the other 50%, well, it's less than 50%, doesn't seem too excited about what's going on. First and foremost, I think there are some things that we have to clear up before we go through exactly what's being stated. Number one, how does evidence traditionally get provided when it comes to an analytical review of Social Security numbers? The way Donald Trump and Elon are doing this is new. It's very unique. It is not the way that's traditionally done. Traditionally, the way we find out when there's a problem internal with the SSA, it is because the data is given to some sort of authority with the federal government or an internal group within the SSA or a nonprofit. And they do a study of that data and release their reports in, they release their information in a final report. And then that report is what's used to go ahead and tackle, fund new things, change projects, etc. But here's the thing. That's not how Elon did it. Elon did it kind of more of the approach that's normally used in private industry, which is go in there, do a massive review, find all the problems, and then get ready to try and fix them as quickly as possible. As a result of that, normally we have the evidence up front before we try to fix the problem. In this instance, Elon can't really produce a lot of the evidence in the normal way because there are violations with things that he can release when it comes to the information that he has access to, because he was, for some of it, allowed to see it, now not, and is, for some of it, still allowed to see it. But the general population is not supposed to be able to see a lot of it. So when it comes to him releasing that information, he's talking about it in general terms, which doesn't give us a good feeling because we don't have direct access to the final report as to what's going on with the problem. Traditionally, it's the opposite. Traditionally, the way it's done is a set of, basically parameters for searched information is sent over to an inside agency, an inside federal government, or a nonprofit to do an analysis, create a report, and make a decision. That's not what's happening here. Now, with that said, we're going to go through some of the basics here with this article, and I'm going to kind of give you some of the fill-ins so you understand from somebody who practices with the Social Security Administration on a daily basis what I'm noticing as to what's going on directly with it. Now, of course, just to keep things in mind, I mostly do disability claims as opposed to retirement, etc. But the main focus is going to be, do these numbers make sense? What have I noticed personally? Now, first thing, I want you to understand this article is not going through all the different categories of, types of things that you might see fraud from. But I believe in the not too distant future, the D.O.G.E. through Elon will likely start to shed light, specifically on these other categories as well. Real quick, Royalty72, happy Valentine's Day. Thank you for the $2 donation. That's awesome. Also, shoot me a text on the cell phone, not the business line. Tara Denise, thank you for the $1.99 donation. Super duper howdy. Very, very cool. Little wave there. Let me put a heart on that. Very awesome. Okay, so quick status update. There are categories where I believe the greatest amount of fraud will be coming from. I'm just going to give them to you so that, people with the squirrel brain right up front where they're all over the place, they feel better, right? Let's just go through the list. SSI for entrants. Okay, these are supplemental security income individuals who basically are coming into this country, as an entrant, a refugee, asylum seeker, somebody who is basically trafficked, etc. Politician family members that receive allowances. Okay. Just to be fair, the employees that work at the SSA, they're like, this thing could never happen. How did this occur? How did this happen? You just need to take one little Google over to the SSA OIG or the OIG in general. And you will see, with the district court systems, you will see them filing charges against these SSA employees and that basically created fraud inside the system. Next one, no name payout accounts. Yes, there are accounts inside the SSA system that have restricted information as to who they're actually paying the money to. So if you have a no name account, which you probably, the viewers here are probably legit individuals receiving their benefits. Obviously, if you are a no name account, you should probably be worried because I'm sure at this point the D.O.G.E is looking into whose bank account it is, who's actually receiving the funds, and how they're being used. Next one, SSA research and demonstration grants. Grants are always a little bit tricky because sometimes you see fraud involved with them. But the whole idea of the research and demonstration grants is creating, using, utilizing new technologies that would help the SSA going forward, or to basically find where there's problems that they need evidence to be able to go ahead and get money to fix it. Next one, SSA service grants. Providing services, particular individuals, things like that. There's always potential fraud there. SSA impossible recipients. So this one you can break down into a lot of smaller categories to understand exactly where the problem is. If there are impossible recipients, you just recently heard the D.O.G.E by Trump in the Oval Office with the White House, with basically Trump sitting there nodding, going along with the details that Elon was outlining. When somebody's too old, right? So if somebody's 150 years old, 112 years old, because they've got like 6.5 million 112-year-olds on file. When somebody's too old, it is a practically impossible, right, recipient, right? Another one is too much resources on SSI benefits. So if somebody has too many resources, resources are all kinds of things. Too many cars, too many houses, too many this, too many that. If they are having too many resources and the federal government hasn't investigated and figured it out as to what's going on yet, then that person becomes an impossible recipient. It is impossible for them to receive the benefits because of their other situation. Another one, not really disabled recipients. As you know, it was weird. It was really weird. There were some really hateful comments put against me, and I didn't even get a chance to read a lot of them because, YouTube, using the little AI bot reads through comments, will grab and throw away comments where people just go off the rail. But there were some really mean comments about how either I was a Trumper or I was a, super liberal, blah, blah, blah. And, which is fine because I'm an independent. Like, you can scream on this person, you can scream on that person. But at the end of the day, I'm giving you both sides. Although each side will claim I'm biased on one side or the other. I've noticed that. Like, there's a lot of people who don't really know what the middle is. But the bottom line here, to be fair, is that there are a lot of individuals who are going to be going through a review. They released an emergency notice through the SSA that they are going to ramp up the amount of reviews that they're doing. It's around 200,000 new ones. And they're going to be really pushing because they're taking all the people that were trying to fight and keep down that backlog of people. That's like 1.12 million people now. They move them back over to doing the CDRs where they review people to see if they should still receive benefits. So just expect in the future, there's going to be a lot of checks to see if somebody should receive the benefits. And the weird part of that was that as I fed in that video, like in bite-sized, cute little, chew this gum this way, little amounts, I fed to you all the ways that they normally look into claims and types of things that you should have to go ahead and be able to keep your benefits. And there was still people rampantly, aggressively being super mean to me specifically, which I'm not totally sure like what the idea was there. But, if you haven't noticed, this channel's about getting you to be able to keep your benefits as a disabled person. Like that's the underlying theme here. So if that was upsetting to you, then I'm not totally sure you get what the channel is about. Like I'm showing people what they need to do to prove that they can't work a job, that they prove that their impairments are severe. Because to be fair, most people who are severely impaired don't automatically right off the bat understand what are the things that they need to prove that severity of impairment. So anyways, bottom line is this. They're going to be doing checks into those individuals who are receiving disability benefits. Expect that Donald Trump in the future will give the okay, buy-in through the SSA, and they may create SSRs, Social Security rulings, where they can look into your social media accounts as well. Although remember, if you have information hidden, they will need a warrant situation. But do expect the Republicans to kick up OIG's activities because OIG is the body inside the SSA that's supposed to do something about the investigations. Whereas Elon, he's a read-only person. He doesn't have right or do action on behalf of it stuff right now. Trump may give him some of that. But the point is, OIG, Office of Inspector General inside the SSA, is specially funded to go ahead and specifically do things about potential fraud, potential, similar fault, and then things that kind of fit in that bubble. All right. The next category that we just talked about is that fraud and similar fault recipients. So the ironic problem is that coming out of Biden's 4 years, and we're coming to this the post woke era, right? We're coming to the Trump era. What's happening is now a lot of people who are on disability benefits, supplemental security income benefits, retirement benefits, they don't have enough money to be able to survive well. And so, basically people are saying like, oh, the dollar is still going through inflation. And they're right. They're right. Trump is going to be dealing with a couple of months to 6 months of inflation. And then a lot of the stuff he's doing is going to simmer down, right? The growth of the dollar in a negative way. But what they're coming through is that Biden era policy where, we saw some things that weren't so preferential, right? How he handled selling oil when he sold oil, how that affected your cost of living adjustment, how he handled reserve currency use, how much he paid to these organizations and other countries, and how that affected the ability of the US to supply a higher standard of living to its, citizens, including the recipients. So there was, it wasn't a commercial president. Like, I don't think anybody would argue that Biden, until the very last year, became a very, commercial, or I guess what I would say is, somebody who really used the American method of money, which is, of course, basically buy, sell, all this classic, standardized models we use to make as much profit as we can. In the final year, Biden became basically the great oil empire king. He was massively, massively exporting. And he did that because he had to improve the economy going into the vote year, which is, he had to. There was no choice. I know Democrats will say, how dare he do that? But he had no choice. He had to improve the economy to be a competitor against, any potential Republican that they put up. He had to do it. So at the same time, when we look at this commercial industrial way of handling money, and what America is and how America does things, it's just one of those things where people came out of those 4 years and it was difficult for them because they did not have enough money to go ahead and buy the things they normally would. Everybody's standard of living is lower now, right? For the most part, unless they were somebody who had assets that vastly went up. And there were small categories of those groups, including CEOs. CEOs took advantage of Americans. You think the grocery store people didn't take advantage of you that own the grocery stores? Obviously they did. Obviously they did. Okay. The bottom line here is that there has to be control, and there has to be a president who's willing to go toe to toe with the CEOs, toe to toe with the heads of states, and make them bend so that the American people have a better standard of living. 2025, things are really expensive. The grocery store you go to, the business grocery store that the business owners go to, a lot of small businesses, medium businesses, they're all getting gobbled up by larger businesses because the larger businesses know that these medium and smaller businesses are weak right now. So they're hungry for money because they can't make as much as they should be making with the services and the products that they provide. So what's happening is, I think a lot of people are potentially getting side gigs, side jobs, stuff like that. Make a little money here, make a little money there to bolster how much Social Security benefits give them with the money they get as a side gig to be able to survive. That's the model that I'm seeing right now. People that have never worked before while on disability benefits are now working. As a result, expect that they're going to be using some of this evidence to review individuals, see if they're truly that impaired, see if their capacity to go into a ticket to work program is, how quickly did they go through their 9-month trial work period, their extended eligibility period, stuff like that. So it's ramping up for D.O.G.E. through OIG to do investigations that normally we wouldn't see, because we just wouldn't be seeing this many disabled people or this many retired people working like they are now. And don't forget, I honestly didn't see the brilliance of this maneuver back in the day, like a year and a half ago or a year ago, when they first started to promote, why don't we get rid of taxes on the elderly? So, basically that was a Republican started, then the Democrats said they would do it too. But the bottom line is that if the economy gets bad enough, which it did, and then a lot of people have to work when they normally wouldn't have to, which they are, then what happens is, if you promote to Social Security recipients, specifically in this case, the retired, that you're no longer going to double tax them, where they get taxed for their retirement benefits and then taxed once they go ahead and receive their retirement benefits and work and earn over a certain amount, 25K at 50%, 34K to 85%. So the point is the point that I'm getting at here with this whole situation is that he did a very smart, popular chess move. The Democrats were going to do it as well because it was incredibly bright in that regard as well. But he did a smart chess move because he realized going forward a year and a half, these people were all going to have to go get a job. We're seeing 65-year-olds, we're seeing 75-year-olds getting jobs. We're even seeing some 80-year-olds get a job, which is just weird. We're seeing people who normally would work in a job. And I mean, this is especially for government workers. They would work, they do their thing, they get their pension, then they get their social security benefits on top of that. And then boom, like that's the gig. That's it. They're not working anymore. Now you're seeing a lot of government people get out of their government job and go get another job, which you would never see in the past. Like you just didn't see that, the really smart Americans, which I didn't do. I was kind of an idiot on this. They went and got a county job, then they got a state job, then they got a federal job, and they just kept collecting pension after pension after pension, and they are set up for life. Now, they don't have to get a job, right? Including the VA people. They don't have to get a job. But, pretty much everybody, we're just not like the benefits. So at the end of the day, we're all going to be working as it currently is right now, well into 60s, 70s, etc. There's no way to afford stuff the way we should be able to normally. So that's the problem. Unless, of course, things get better. But, everybody's saying Trump will be able to deliver this. I don't know. I hope anything better is better. You know what I mean? I hope. New York Frank, thank you for the 49 donations. Super appreciate that. It's a cool little logo there as well. Very, very cool. Let me put it on that. Thank you. So let's go through this article. Now that you understand how evidence is normally created related to Social Security change, now that you understand kind of like, what's going on with the population when it comes to types of people that they'll be investigating in the future as a result of that emergency notice release that they created, here's the article. It's by Christy Bieber or Bieber. I think it's Bieber. Elon Musk drops bombshell on Social Security, quote, magnitude of fraud is staggering. Since President Donald Trump took office and appointed Elon Musk to head up the Department of Government Efficiency, Musk and his team have been hard at work rooting out fraud and abuse throughout multiple government departments, from dismantling USAID to stopping $59 million in FEMA payments alleged to be going to housing and undocumented immigrants in luxury hotels. D.O.G.E. has been aggressive and looking for spending to slash and programs to cancel, which is why me, a disability attorney, a little worried right now. You know what I mean? All right, so let's keep rolling. Also, if you notice me clearing my throat, and I just went through that procedure. Tomorrow, they give me the results back as to basically what they took out of the, I did the endo and the colonoscopy spiel, but they'll give me the results back. But she said, right when I woke up, no cancer, no problem. But I do have a good hernia in the hiatal. And then also basically the valve obviously isn't working well, which is why, yada, yada, having issues. But should be okay. And they're looking at all that stuff. I just haven't been a good patient for a long time because I just, I constantly work into the night. So, all right. So here's the deal. Elon Musk recently tweeted that the fraud in Social Security and other entitlement programs exceeds the combined sum of every private scam, which is a very saucy, spicy comment to make. Musk and D.O.G.E. have plans to fix what they see as fraud in government benefit payments. That's what scares the shit out of me, because there's he's just, it's his thing. He's doing it. There's no Democrat joining him or balance. It's just full Musk, right? Which, he will fix things. He will get it done. We just might not like the outcome. We might like the outcome. I always ask myself while I'm doing these videos too, is not knowing better or worse than knowing and then having a fix? And that's what we're balancing with this situation. How bad, how good could it be? All right, next one. Some are concerned about their methods and the court may slow them down, but changes are possible. Changes are going to happen because he's got the House, he's got the Senate, he's got the Oval Office. So when people are like, you can't do that, let me explain. We have the Constitution, and the Constitution is interpreted by the Supreme Court of the United States. But when you have the House, the Senate, and the Oval Office, they can keep passing things, and then they can keep going to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court can kick it down, but at some point, you may have noticed, the Supreme Court, when it comes to certain things, says, give the people what they want, let them legislate a fix. A lot of you think the Supreme Court's always going to go ahead and decide what the Supreme Court wants to. Go study the Supreme Court. You will see that they defer to Congress on a lot of stuff. All right, next one. Okay, now Musk has set his sights on some of America's most popular entitlement programs. On February 11th, 2025, he tweeted out, "At this point, I am 100% certain that the magnitude of the fraud in federal entitlements, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, welfare, disability, etc., exceeds the combined sum of every private scam you've ever heard by far. It's not even close." End quote. So let me just read that quote to you again, because there's a lot to unwrap in that wonderful little scary package. Okay, here we go. "At this point, I am 100% certain." So to him, mathematically, from the actuaries, he is certain, okay, that the magnitude, massiveness of the fraud, people screwing people over, okay, in federal entitlements, right? So Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, welfare, disability, right? Our classic programs exceeds, is bigger than the combined sum, all of it added up, of every private scam you've ever heard by far. So what he's talking about is $1 trillion or more, right? He's talking about trillions of dollars in scam. Now, you all hear me talking about the scam that the federal government does to us, which is that they manipulate the math of the cost of living adjustment, which causes you to get $500 less per month than you actually should, which, is epic, epic fraud from the federal government to its citizens when they pay into this program their entire life. So on a scale of unethical and immoral, the federal government is like, let's say 0 is the most horrible, terrible thing on earth, right? The most immoral, unethical thing that could be in existence. And 10 is like, perfect, perfect, whatever you could say, perfect, godly person, gentleman, lady, whatever, the most perfect, ethically moral. The government would be around a 2, okay, for what they do to manipulate math to give you less. It's not good. And they do it a lot. And they do it with oil. They do it with your cost of living adjustment. They do it with price adjustments. They do it with the reserve currency. They do it a lot. So the point is, what he's saying is the level of fraud of what they're sending out the door is greater over, I don't even know how many years, but I would assume he's probably looking at a period of 20 to 30 years in his actual research, greater than any actual private scam in the history of what you could have potentially heard about, which of course they do movies and videos on the greatest scams that have ever occurred, So the point that I'm getting at here is for him to make a comment like that, it is very scary, very nerve-wracking. We don't know the timeline as to how many years he's looking at. We don't know how many dollars he's talking about, but we assume it's trillions. We assume 20 to 30 year review schedule. So here's the deal. So the big question is, reading from the article, is Musk correct? And if so, is D.O.G.E. going to be able to put a stop to it? Because remember, at this point, he's already had the information. The judges, you gotta destroy copies of it. Blah blah blah. Blah. Fine, okay, cool. But, they got the White House, they got the Senate, they got they got the House. So the judge is only going to go so far before it goes to legislation land, and D.O.G.E. has full access. Yada yada. The point is this, okay? Is it better to not know, or is the fraud so scary and so massive that we need to know? And we need to stop it because we could be using that money to fix the trust funds, right? The Social Security trust funds, Medicare, retirement, SSDI, right? Because the trust funds, Medicare is not doing good, retirement's doing really bad, and SSDI is doing okay. It's okay. It's not great. It's not going to make it into the 75-year, extended period, but it's doing better than retirement, unless, which is something that's being promoted by both sides, Republican and Democrat, they combine the SSDI trust fund into the retirement trust fund to make the retirement benefits last 1 more year longer. Not to mention, remember, about 6 to 12 months earlier than it's likely to run out 6 to 12 months earlier because they passed that Social Security Fairness Act to benefit, of course, basically people who have a dual pension, which I'm not getting into that in that video. I know people are very upset about that. I get it. I understand it. A lot of you are getting like, 900 and something bucks, a month on SSI. And you're like, why the hell are we giving more money to a dual pensioner person so that they get the advantage of the poverty system, at the SSA? I get it. It's just nothing I can do about it. There's nothing I can do about that. All right. So next one is fraud. Remember, there's another side to that too. The other side is it's good to give more money to Americans. It just is, especially when it comes to those who have served, usually in roles as teachers, police officers, yada, yada, because they don't make that much while they're doing their thing. Teachers really get screwed. All right. So there's two sides to that. All right. Is fraud rampant in America's entitlement programs? Musk's concern about Social Security and other entitlement programs appears to stem from the fact that payments are allegedly being made improperly, including to people who lack both Social Security number and temporary IDs. So what he's saying is dollars, they're going out the door. They're going out the door, and there's no real reason that they should be linked to that person. So imagine if somebody didn't have a Social Security card. Imagine if somebody didn't even have an identification with the state and they were still getting a payment from the Social Security Administration. That's not good. That is not good. Okay. So even you would expect at least some form of ID of a person going through immigration. Some form. He's saying there's even people receiving it that don't even have that. Okay. All right. In a separate February 8 tweet, Musk estimated the value of these improper payments at $108 billion per year. Okay, 108 billion per year, indicating he'd be given that number, although he did not reveal the source of the information. Because remember, he's restricted too in what he can give and what he can't give. But I think we agree he should have given, like, they come from these categories. You know what I mean? So much from retirement, so much for immigrants, so much from SSI, so much from SSDI. We should have had that, right? Although keep in mind, what he's showing here is that this is leading over a time period into trillions of dollars, which is a very, very scary idea. That's just, imagine fraud going on year after year. And now imagine you're receiving your benefits. Imagine if there's people getting the same thing that you get, and that just repeats year after year after year. That's going to add up pretty quickly. In the same February 8 tweet, he outlined his plan to address this issue and stop the improper payments, including, number one, requiring all outgoing payments to have a categorization code to enable auditing of where the money is going. Fine, makes sense. We want to know how the bank accounts are linked. We want them to be categorized. Fine. Requiring a rationale for all outgoing payments in the comment field, which currently does not contain any information. I mean, I guess it should have a rationale in a comment field, but honestly, its category should tell us what the rationale is. But if you want to have somebody specifically write in a cute, 2-sentence thing as to why this person's receiving that, I just feel like the category should already say that, but fine. You want to do that? Cool. Next one, implementing the do not pay list of entities that are known to be dead, fronts for terror organizations, scammers, or who are not meant to receive the funds under congressional appropriations. Now, look, I've spoken with people about the do not pay list. Okay. To be fair, I understand things about it. I can't go into every little detail about it, but there are major problems with that. Next one, updating the do not pay list weekly, as it is currently updated infrequently. They need an entire division of people at the SSA. And remember, the next video after this video is explaining why the SSA has 30,000 people dying every single year waiting for disability benefits. The next video is going to talk about the employment crisis at the SSA and how bad it's getting. And it is a whopper. It is a real whopper. And I've spoken with about 10 people as to what's going on with the employment crisis who do management stuff at the SSA. And it is, they're current, not just like people who did it back in the past, current people. And it is a spicy situation. Next, on its face, these suggestions seem reasonable. And there does seem to be at least some support for the idea that the government is not doing a great job weeding out fraud and abuse. In fact, in August of 2024, the Office of Inspector General for the Social Security Administration indicated that it had sent out $72 billion in improper payments, including overpayments between 2015 and 2022. And that's just for Social Security benefits, which they grabbed from their OIG report. And basically, we went through that report together. And remember, this was going on during Commissioner Martin O'Malley's tenure, where he was trying with Congress to try and tighten the system up. Now, however, and this is a big however, these overpayments accounted for less than 1% of total benefits paid during the time. Now, I understand that the politicians keep saying the Social Security Administration runs on less than 1% of what it pays out. I keep seeing Republicans and Democrats using this argument. Stop using that effing argument. It's running on less than 1% of what it pays out, but the customer service is shit because it's running on less than 1% of what it pays out. Stop politicians from using that argument. I know the American people haven't caught up with how stupid it is yet, but they're going to figure it out, and then your careers are shit at that point. They're going to figure it out. The American people is going to catch up on that one. The other thing is, Stop using the argument that the amount of fraud being paid out is only 1% of all the money being paid. That is not a good indicator of a system that is doing well. 1% of $1.4 trillion is, they say 72 billion here. Just look, that is not a good indicator that your shit is in order. That is good indicator that your shit is not in order. You know, oh, if it was 5%, 5% of 1.4 trillion, whatever dollar, you shit me? There's that much fraud? So, all right. So, okay. While 72 billion is a big number, I love how this article parses it down. The government is always dealing in big numbers. It's easy to overstate the scope of a problem when you don't compare the rates of fraudulent payments relative to total spending. I don't know, guys. I got to be honest. $72 billion. I know they spend a lot more than that to pay you all the money you paid for all those years. I do know that. I do. I get it. But $72 billion? No. That is not okay. That is look, I grew up on a farm and $72 billion is $72 billion. Just like that tractor weighs that much and that thing costs that much and that cow's going to produce that much milk. $72 billion is way too much. Way too much. Okay. Just guys, can any of you figure out a way to visualize $72 billion in your head? I mean, just try to envision just $100 million, but $72 billion. Do you comprehend that $72 billion could fix most problems in America? Homeless problem, building tons and tons of housing, right? For low income and poverty, induced people to have housing. $72 billion can do a lot. Not in California, but it can do a lot in many places. All right, let's keep rolling. All right, so here we go. It's just like, 72 billion. Just give that to Ukraine. I mean, it's just, and Ukraine's 200 something plus billion at this point with all the stuff we've donated and yada yada. All right, further, while Musk's suggestions seem unobjectionable, some have expressed concern over allowing the unselected billionaire access to sensitive private information to audit these entitlement programs. Some commentators and lawmakers have also raised questions about whether Musk and D.O.G.E. are miscategorizing spending they don't like with fraudulent spend. And this is what I'm most scared of. It's how they categorize it. Spending, particularly in the case of the USAID programs. If that is the case, and that trend continues as Musk shifts D.O.G.E.'s focus to entitlements, then it's possible some people could find themselves with their benefits, with their payments, being questioned, even if current law says they are owed the money. Let me read this to you again, because this is the important part. This is the thing that I'm very nervous about as a Social Security disability attorney. Let me read it again. Here we go. If that is the case, let me go farther back. Some commentators, this guy right here, and lawmakers have also raised questions about whether Musk and D.O.G.E. are miscategorizing spending they don't like with fraudulent spending, particularly in the case of USAID programs, yada, yada. But just wait. They're going to look at disability benefits. Just wait. They're going to look at your retirement benefits. Just wait. They're doing it right now. If that is the case, and that trend continues, as Musk shifts D.O.G.E.'s focus to entitlements, which is what he's working on this week, okay? And next week is going to be very spicy because you're going to be seeing a lot more stuff coming out. Then it's possible some people could find themselves with their payments being questioned, even if current law says they are owed the money. That's what's scary. That's what's bothering me. There's just they don't have. Look, I get it. If you put all the Republicans and Democrats in the same room, nothing gets done because they literally work together to create all this uproar so that people on one side will vote for them and the people on the other side will vote for the other side. They create a big show. You want to know what the biggest Hollywood is? It's Washington, D.C. You want to know where the greatest play actors are? It's Washington, D.C. Okay? Now, with that said, it would be good if President Trump maybe got a Democrat with D.O.G.E. to go through the numbers and create some balanced effect, right, of essentially what's being released as to what's fraud, what are they considering fraud, giving examples of fraud and similar fault. That would be a good strategic idea. Now, with that said, is Trump going to do that? I doubt it. I mean, look at all the crap they did to Trump. I mean, they filed so many suits that convicted him. Trump has more convictions against him than most of the hardcore criminals that I represent. And I represent some of the worst that just barely made it out of the system. So let me just say, they threw everything at him. They threw everything. They tried to end him. They threw everything they could at him. As a result, I don't think he's going to play ball at all with the Democrats, but it would help add validity to what Elon is doing to create a more balanced effect. That's all I'm saying. Will Musk's D.O.G.E. be allowed to fix Social Security? Musk's ability to make changes to entitlements also remains up for debate. Federal judges have temporarily halted many of the initiatives put in place by D.O.G.E. and the Trump administration. And on February 8th, 2025, New York federal judge Paul A. Engelmeyer even imposed a temporary restraining order blocking the administration from sharing certain Treasury Department information with D.O.G.E. Now, do I think that's going to matter? Do I think he's really going to get rid of those copies that he has? Maybe. I don't know. I mean, look, the discussion's going to go into what types of servers, what types of programs is all this being stored on? How are the people accessing it, etc. All right. Both Trump and Musk have called the actions of these judges lawfare and argue their rulings are improper and invalid. Appeals are inevitable, and it seems both Trump and his opposition are gearing up for a fight over executive power that's likely to make it to the Supreme Court sooner rather than later. And remember, he's a billionaire. He's most of the time the richest person on earth. So when it comes to like having a massive war chest of legal, attorneys, teams, etc., getting evidence, he's got the advantage over the Democrats. He, in and of himself, has enough money to fight the entire Democratic Party. So, now remember, of course, we like to sit here and we like to say justice is blind. Is justice truly blind? No. At the lower levels, it is, especially because it kind of follows the higher levels. It's more theoretical, historical references. What's the custom? What's the trend? Yada, yada. Is justice blind? No, you go to some of these cities where, people are getting injured horribly, getting attacked, right? And then we see no prosecution against them. Well, how does that happen? Justice is blind. They're supposed to be prosecuted against for doing horrible crimes, yet they get out in a very short time. They're back on the streets. They're dealing. It's not good, etc. So is justice blind? I don't know if I'd sell that. I wouldn't sell that. Okay. But I am required by the bar to say great attempts are made to make sure that justice is blind, meaning that a fair, equitable, blah, 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 actual outcome will occur. Look, here's the deal. Most of the judges I know, that's how it is. But I know and can count on more than my hand the judges that I would not prescribe that outcome to. And I say that because at the end of the day, you have to understand judges are humans. They are. Now, is it a very high level of individual, significantly above the average normative standard of intellectual capacity? Absolutely. Supreme Court justices are unique human beings. They're unicorns. They're super smart, right? The people working for them are the ultra version of smart, right? We even choose our Supreme Court justices potentially from individuals that were working for the Supreme Court justices. But again, they are humans. Now, both Trump and Musk have called these actions lawfare. They're not happy. Bottom line is the court may rule in his favor and give D.O.G.E. more leeway, although that remains to be seen. Although I will say this, when you got the House, the Senate, and the Oval Office, things seem to magically go your way a little bit more, okay? Ultimately, any major changes to entitlement programs will have to come from Congress. Again, House, Senate, you know what I mean? But depending on the court's position and techniques used for D.O.G.E., that doesn't mean that the current processes will remain in place absent legislative action. You need the House and the Senate. There's a great deal of uncertainty right now, but one thing is for sure, D.O.G.E. is moving fast, is serious about cutting spending, and this administration is very unlikely to just deliver more of the status quo politics that has become so common surrounding big problems in D.C. Those counting on Social Security or other entitlements should watch the news carefully to see what directions reforms take so they'll better understand what changes are coming down the line. Hence why I made the video explaining all the things that OIG and D.O.G.E. are looking for when they put you on a red flag list. Hence why I gave you things to go ahead and prepare in the future in that video going forward. Just go back to the videos I've done. It was only a couple of videos ago, only a couple of days ago. With that said, I am nervous. I am nervous because at the end of the day, I don't know how aggressive the D.O.G.E is going to be when it comes to people. You and I both know that there are some people in the comments, some people in the chat who will say, look, if you're disabled, you got nothing to worry about because you're disabled. But that person also is kind of being a little bit of a disingenuous platypus because they don't know what disabled actually is. There's no perfect, definitive answer for that unless you look at like some of the, musculoskeletal, some of the other listing level criteria. But a lot of you were found disabled on vocational allowances. And vocational allowances are where basically, all of your impairments combined equate to your inability to go ahead and work in the national economy. Well, a lot of that is gray room. A lot of that is like, per judge, which way the judge is going to lean. A lot of that's gray room. That's why we have hearings, right? Listings, compassionate allowance listings, we call them CALs. Yeah, we got an outline. I mean, they're not a perfect outline. There's not lots of detail, but it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Okay. But at the same time, I just want you to understand the problem is there's a lot of gray room in disability law. And I'm very nervous because if you make disability law a very rigid, a very articulated, a very specific type of law, there are going to be significantly fewer people being found disabled that actually truly are disabled and unable to work a job. That's what scares me. All right. With that said, please remember to like and subscribe so that it helps me continue to make videos going into the future. Now, with that said, I hope you're doing well. You can become a member if you want. A big thing that I love seeing, you don't have to do this, but it helps me out. It's something that like gets me going in the morning. Basically, bottom line is if you go to Google and you type in disability resolution law firm or disability resolution Florida, throw some stars up there. It always makes me feel good. Literally, I wake up when I see some stars up there. I get out of bed. I push. All right. Now, with that said, also Mondays and Thursdays. So tonight I go live and I answer questions for free about disability benefits. Also, very important. If you have a bigger question and you need to hire me for a private session, and this is how I basically set it up. So I go live, I do these videos. I also work at the law firm from 9 to 5 and I do disability benefits, but it really turns into like 9 to 10, right? So, I normally go live like around 11-ish, 12-ish at night. The point is this. If it's a little thing, I answer it in the free sessions, Monday and Thursday. If it's a big thing, you need a full hour. Oh, this chair's going to break on me. I did tighten it a little bit, but it's still squeaky. You hear that? It's still all over the place. But with that said, I still do private sessions where basically you can buy an hour and the mini contract is below. That way I can answer a more difficult situation for you. I will catch you all a little bit later at the next video. Give me about 10 to 15 minutes. We'll get that rolling. And that's specifically going to be about why there are 30,000 people dying in America waiting for disability benefits. And I'm going to show you the main issue when it comes to the SSA that's causing that particular problem. I'll see you at the next video soon. We'll catch up and we'll go from there. Attorney Walter Hnot, and thank you so much for hanging out. All right, we'll go from there. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.